Bagpipes. This time. Overground and underground to Wimbledon. The cobblers at Northampton came up next. And then a pilgrimage when we went to Stevenage. And then we went to Wickham, who lost at Wembley. We got it there, we got it there.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Let's move on now.
Move on now, shall we? Okay.
Up to Mansfield Town to have a stag night. And then we play Notts County up the lane. We take on Oxford News and we hope that Luton lose. And miles and miles and miles to follow the Greens. It's miles and miles and miles to follow the Greens. Miles and miles and miles to follow the Greens. Miles and miles and miles. Miles and miles and miles. Miles and miles and miles to follow the Greens. Where next? We'll wear our violet kitty at York City. Play Dagenham and Redbridge in one day. And then off to the cesspool when we play Hartlepool. And up to Newport County that contains an anagram. It's a long old poke right up to Carlisle. But Bristol Rovers is much nearer home. And we'll take the target buggy up to Yeovil to see Luggy. He's still apologising for signing Steve McLean. No one really wants to go to Crawley. At Barnet we will be sensational. And Stanley will be done when we meet with Accrington. Miles and miles and miles to follow the Greens.
Here we go.
It's miles and miles and miles to follow the Greens. Miles and miles and miles to follow the Greens. Miles and miles and miles. Miles and miles and miles. Miles and miles and miles to follow the Greens. Where next? We'll go and pose with Eric up at Morecambe. And then the game we've all been waiting for. Cause even Tisdale must admit that Exeter is full of shit. And Ruben is a legend for his hat-trick trickery. Then the famous Fanfest goes to Pompey to meet our good companions dressed in blue. We'll take the Orient Express and make Cambridge second best. And miles and miles and miles to follow the Greens.